Recently, after a bit of an internet firestorm, Japan's so-called Africa Hometown Initiative was cancelled. But why was it so controversial, and what happened to create such an internet backlash? Well, back in August, a Japanese organisation, the Japan International Cooperation Agency, announced an initiative that was going to be called the Africa Hometown Initiative. Now, the idea behind this was that they were going to pair up 4 Japanese municipalities up with areas in Africa. And the idea behind this was that there was going to be cultural, economic exchanges, training, and just generally cultural and economic exchanges within the municipalities and these areas of Africa, just to create a bit of cooperation and closer ties. Now, I don't believe tied into this, from what I understand, was there any sort of involved visa application to make it easier for people from Africa to move to Japan, or any sort of a real substantial immigration implications from what I understand, despite how it was taken. I think, effectively, from what I understand, it was going to be quite similar to what we have in terms of twinning in the UK. For example, my hometown, or where I live, of Birmingham, is twinned with Frankfurt. And this really doesn't amount to much other than you'll see a sign in saying, you know, Birmingham twinned with Frankfurt. You know, there'll be social media exchanges, there'll be possible trade like trips between Birmingham and Frankfurt, and like little like initiatives to create closer ties between the two cities. But it really doesn't amount to much. So it's not too much more involved from that, from what I understand. However, this program, this Africa Hometown Initiative in Japan, to mean that there was going to be it was understood that there was going to be a large amount of people emigrating from Africa to Japan, or at least that was how it was taken online. And this received a lot of attention and complaints that went into both the municipalities and the program in Japan. And it even made its way into sort of Western media, and this was picked up on a lot and like reported as if there was going to be large African immigration going to Japan. And that's how it was taken online anyway. Now, I have some degree of sympathy with the people who planned this organisation in Japan, because I don't think they anticipated this sort of backlash. And I have sympathy, for one, because I think 5-10 years ago, I don't think this would have sparked such a controversial reaction. I think because of social media now, and because of the advancement of movements online and parties like Reform, for example, that have sort of spilled over and sort of changed the way rhetoric towards immigration is discussed in Japan. That's the sort of the rise of anti-immigration parties in the West has sort of maybe led to that sort of rhetoric going into Japan as well. And also because of social media, it's so much more easy to respond rapidly and misunderstand something and then just give your feedback very quickly, having just got a quick understanding of the situation now. There was also some confusion, I think partly because of the Nigeria, one of the countries involved in this initiative, put out a statement which referenced a sort of a special visa category, and that was taken to be affirmation that there was going to be this African immigration going to Japan, despite that not coming from the Japanese program themselves. I think that was possibly a misunderstanding that being put out there. However, you could argue that's a failure on the part of the program not to be sensitive enough to realise that frankly, you have to acknowledge the world you're living in. Immigration is a much bigger topic in Japan these days. Sanzeto, a party that ran on sort of being to the right of the LDP and being more anti-immigration than them, just had a major breakthrough in the 2025 election, and they became the 3rd or 4th largest party in that election. And frankly, you have to live in the world you're in, and there is this social media dynamic. There is anti-immigration rhetoric in Japan, and it is a much bigger issue than it was 5 or 10 years ago. So I think really there should have been someone in the room who was savvy enough to say, we should really make sure we're communicating effectively what we're doing here, to make sure it's not misunderstood. And so while I do feel sympathetic to the people in this program, I feel they really should have been on top of that to just really communicate clearly, given the current environment, and given it is a political hot issue, just to really communicate what they were doing so it wasn't misunderstood. And the net result of this, as I say, was the municipalities received a lot of emails and pressure from Japanese citizens, and there was a lot of posts online taking this to mean that there was going to be a sort of large-scale immigration as a result of this program, and sort of misunderstanding really what was being proposed. And so I think you have to say ultimately that happened because in part because this wasn't clearly communicated, I think. Now, this was initially announced in August, and where we are now is that as a result of this sort of media backlash, all this speculation and all this talk about it, is that now in September it's been cancelled a month later. And the reason given by the programme, the JICA, behind cancelling it in September was that there was a lot of misunderstanding and confusion around it. Obviously, it's led to online and a general backlash towards the programme, and there's also cited the use of the word hometown led to the misunderstanding or contributed to misunderstanding. So there's a sort of maybe a little bit of an acknowledgement that they could have, at least in terms of the use of that word hometown, handled this better and made it clearer what they were announcing. Now, this says something, I think, about social media and just how prevalent the immigration issue has become globally and in Japan in particular, and the importance of really communicating around this issue and making sure what you're saying can't be misunderstood. But I think it really does just demonstrate just how important and prevalent the immigration issue is becoming in Japan. If that weren't clear enough from Sanzato running on sort of an immigration message and having such a big breakthrough in the 2025 election, I think this is just another demonstration that this, at the moment, is a big political issue in Japan. And so it'll be interesting how prevalent it will become in future elections, and if there might be any other misunderstandings like this in future. But hopefully organisations will sort of learn their lesson in terms of just really communicating as clearly as possible what they're intending, because it's very unfortunate that municipalities had lots of emails and negativity as a result of this, and I think that's very unfortunate. So hopefully that won't happen again in future.